Hello, you microbial mushers, and thank you to Christian Atala for that malt mention. Whisky fans, single malt aficionados, and just you regular malt mates, welcome to the Bothy in a far and distant place, and not somewhere that's not quite the real world. Thank goodness, these places still exist. And this is Ralphie Review 948, and I'm dipping into the archive a little bit to unearth a bottle of 10-year-old Springbank. Before I introduce it, let me tell you how I got hold of it. I happened to be over in Scotland, very near to the day that Springbank were releasing a consignment of their whisky onto the domestic market in Scotland. And I went into the shop and I bought a bottle and I took it back to the flat I was staying at in Glasgow, and I opened it and I really enjoyed it. And I thought, well, I'll hold that back and maybe review it at some point. And then, of course, the pandemic lockdown happened, and for 2.5 years I couldn't get access to this bottle, so it's simply been sitting waiting. So this bottle was in fact bought in 2019, but fortunately, being hard liquor, bottled at 46%, it has an infinite shelf life. Although there's been some whisky consumed out of it, and there's a bit of an air gap in there, I don't have to worry about oxidisation because it's a young whisky and it's robust. And in fact, during that time, it's simply softened and mellowed and improved. So I've brought it back to the Bothy now from Scotland recently, and I'm going to review it for you, because we're now at the moment in time where being able to buy and review Springbank is an increasingly rare occurrence, because Springbank Distillery has really come of age. And I wish them all the very best, because if any distillery in Scotland deserves it, it's Springbank. Because Springbank is the real deal. And no malt mates out there are going to quibble with that. But first of all, I was kind of looking up the archive, and the last Springbank review I did was 808. Now that was back in January 2020, so it's not quite, 3 years ago, but it's certainly way over 2.5 years. And the only reason I could review Springbank then was because I was quick off the block in buying a bottle. But now, primarily because Springbank is now available in the US market and a lot of Springbank is exported to the United States, there's far less available in the British market, and therefore it goes into shops basically on allocation. This is why it's so hard to buy a bottle of Springbank now, because it's being spread very thinly, whereas a specialist retailer could buy 6 cases of Springbank a few years ago. Now they'll be lucky to get 6 bottles. And the demand for Springbank in its entire history of production has never been higher than it is now. And it's not because it's an artificially induced collectible like Macallan, trading in a reputation that it used to have. It's trading on a reputation that it absolutely, definitely does have and looks after. For anyone who really understands Scotch whisky, Springbank is the real deal more than any other distillery out there, bar none. And it's entirely on merit. Springbank do everything at the distillery. They store the barley, soak the barley, malt the barley, kiln the barley, mill the barley. They have wooden washbacks. They have worm tub cooling systems. They have a direct fired still. They have small stills, 3 of them. And one of the stills, the wash still, is fired by gas. These, it's rare for any distillery to direct fire at still these days, which does make a difference. No, it doesn't matter what the experts have told you, malt mates. I'm in the bothy. I'm telling you, as it really is, direct firing stills does make a significant difference. Worm tub condensers, and there's only about 18 distilleries in the whole of Scotland use them, but they make a huge difference. Not fractional, not marginal, not a little, make a significant difference. A very impactful difference. You'll see that in Mortlach. Very good example. And you'll find that shortly from Ardnahoe. A rare example of a modern distillery who've gone to the additional cost and effort of installing worm tub condensers for a simple reason. They actually really totally do work. And you need to know about this, because when you know about this, then you understand why whisky from Springbank is in such demand. Why is it so good? It's not one single factor. It's all the little factors from start to finish which all add up. With its basic simple presentation, no bullshit, no flannel, no bling bling, no ridiculous marketing, not condescending, patronising ambassadors. I'm sorry, I've got to say this. I was observing someone recording a brand ambassador in the US, and they just brought out their mobile device, and that's all you do, and you just record a wee bit of it, and they sent me it privately, and frankly, it was cringeworthy. It really was. I could have found it entertaining, but I actually thought, this is not doing the industry any good at all. Seriously. It's not good. Thank goodness for Springbank. Any distillery in the world that wants to be successful, that wants to make its mark, and that wants to be recognised as being the best of the best and not just the rest, needs to go to Springbank. The owners need to go to Springbank and hang about at this place and just read what's actually happening there. It surprises me that no other distillery is doing all their own maltings and has their own bottling plant on the location so that they can do the entire process from start to finish. Sure, there are some distilleries that do have a bottling plant, like Bruichladdich, but they don't have a maltings floor. And there's other distilleries that do have a maltings floor, like Balvenie, like Laphroaig, but it's just small and occasional, not all the time. The actual volume of production from Springbank is small. And because, and this is it, that it's not like Macallan where they've got a huge distillery pumping out millions of litres of alcohol a year. Springbank genuinely is small. It's the real deal. And because of the internet, and because of the ease of communication and sharing of knowledge and experience, this is why Springbank now is so hard to find. And we complain about it. And if we really wanted, we could go direct to the distillery, and if we wait long enough, we can buy a bottle. Because there's plenty of bottles available in the distillery shop. Even although some of the bottlings sell out literally by 10 o'clock in the morning because they're so desirable. But what a wonderful place to be for a distillery to sell out of everything it produces within a matter of a week. And the one distillery that deserves that is Springbank, because it didn't modernise, it didn't rationalise, it didn't go with the flow of modern, cost-controlled, hygienically sanitised whisky production protocols. You go to Springbank, you'll see cobwebs in the ceiling. You'll see some dust on the floor. And that's because it's the real deal. You go to their warehouses, you will see the dunnage warehouses that smell of damp and dust and earthiness. These are real warehouses. And the majority of distilleries nowadays just don't do it. They do not do it. With the big companies and the corporations, they have no choice. They are committed to volume. They can't do small anymore. It's just not part of their portfolio, no matter what they say. So, that's a pretty good introduction. I'd conclude by saying this is the 10-year-old, 46% natural colour, unchill filtered. Integrity presentation. It's their policy for every single official bottling they do. Every single one. Which is why zoop, sells out instantly. Every time. And other distilleries, they say, well, we're not Springbank, so we're going to bottle at 40%. At least one or two of our bottles at 40%. Maybe 3 or 4 or 5. But the landscape's changing, maltmates, and we're here to help it change. So, a salute to Springbank. It's hard to find, but hey, when we get a bottle, we make sure we do not waste it, and we do not squander it. We do not share it with people who do not know its value, and we cherish the malt moments. The nose already is wonderfully rich. It is dense. Barley sugars and rich sultanas and a little bit of date and fig. Aromatic, malty, wonderfully rich, slightly overripe maltiness. Barley sugar. Complex vanillus. Complex period. Just complex. I've not even tasted it yet. And already it's magnificent. Even without water, the fullness of the flavour jumps out at you and confirms totally the quality of what this is. Real, old school, old-fashioned whiskey in an era before whiskey started to become sanitised and sterilised with too much branding. You won't hear much of this anywhere else, maltmates, you know that. So in with a teaspoon, half a teaspoon, right? 2.5 millilitres. Almost immediately, opening up. That richness of flavour coming from the quality of the grain, the way it's processed, the slow germination, not the enforced germination, computer controlled germination. The seasonal weather generation with open windows and little birds flying in now and again to have a wee peck at the grain. You can only make this happen when you do it. You can't really make it up. It's just what it is. And to actually stand at Springbank, no further explanation need be given as to the quality. In fact, the problem for Springbank is such is the quality of their good bottlings, their really, really good bottlings, that then when they bring out other bottlings which aren't as fantastic, they're still really, really good compared to most other bottlings coming from distilleries. But the real Springbank aficionados will say, this particular cask strength batch 12-year-old, it's not quite as good as it used to be as the last batch. No, it's different because it's down to the casks. But it's still better than the majority of anything else out there on supermarket shelves bottled at 40% and heavily chill filtered. This is, you see, when you taste whiskies like this, maltmates, you're really getting a very direct line to what actually Scotch whisky single malts are capable of. And it's at this point you realise how inferior some other bottlings are. Not because they're particularly bad, but because you can make direct, absolute, emotional, sensory comparison. It's just the way it is. Taste. Full arrival. Huge arrival. Minty, zesty barley sugar, half raisin, half sultana, vanilla. A good, steady, rich, syrupy, complex sensation development. And a finish that's long, 10 years old. It's got a finish like a 21-year-old. Absolutely excellent. It's still a leader in its class. And still other distilleries open up and they don't just literally replicate what Springbank do. What do? Malt their own barley. So they're doing it slower. Generates more flavour. Slower fermentations in small washbacks. Direct fired stills. Slow distillation. Worm tub cooling. Slow cooling. Methodical cooling. With lots of copper exposure. Gives you more flavour. It just does. No quibbles, no arguments. It just does. Then they let the whisky rest before they bottle it. Bottled at 46%. Unchill filtered. Natural colour. The colour's coming from the cask. Because the casks are active. When casks are poor quality and inactive and don't provide flavour to the whisky and don't provide natural colour to the whisky, that's when distillers have to add caramel. They never tell you that. They never will. It's my job. It's left up to me to tell you this. And the simple reason I'm telling you this is because if anything will keep people interested in single malt whisky and keep the industry successful, it is calling out bad practice and inferior standards. And if you want to know what good practices and superior standards, find yourself a bottle of Springbank. Any Springbank will do. It's not always been like this for Springbank. I remember back in the 90s, people weren't particularly interested. But the world has changed a lot since then. Far more people are educated, informed and empowered because of the internet. It's the internet that's done it and continues to do it. As a result of which, people now, still a minority, but a growing minority, a significant minority, know what quality actually is and will pay the premium for it, and importantly, not pay the premium for inferior bottlings from inferior casks of inferiorly produced single malt Scotch whisky. And unfortunately, we're seeing it out there. And I know there's all sorts of influencers and commentators want to tell you how fantastic everything is, but let's take a reality check here. And this is a bit of tough love, by the way, because what's going to save the Scotch whisky industry's reputation in the future is rediscovering and reinvesting in quality. Simple as that. 90. It's a 90 out of 100. It's an integrity malt mark. That's what you get when you make integrity, bottle integrity, and have integrity in the way that you present your whisky to the world. Mission accomplished. Job done. We'll see you soon, malt mates. Because I'm going to talk a little bit more about the history, my history with Springbank Distillery in Ralphie Review 948 extras coming along shortly. Bye.